eye on all of that. Also now I want to take you to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That is where officials tonight are pleading for calm as nightfall comes. This after what happened last night. Protests over the fatal police shooting of a 23-year-old African-American man that authorities say had a gun in his hand and refused to drop his weapon. Still much anger in Milwaukee, in the community where this all happened. Protesters torched 6 businesses. 7 police cruisers were damaged. One of them burned. Milwaukee's police chief says 17 people were arrested overnight, mostly for disorderly conduct, some for burglary. 4 officers were injured, and Wisconsin's governor has now called in the National Guard. Our Ana Cabrera is live for us tonight in Milwaukee. We heard the mayor, Tom Barrett, speaking, the police chief urging calm, urging people to stay home tonight. What are you seeing?
People aren't staying home, Poppy. You can see there's quite a large crowd starting to gather just behind me. Definitely dozens of people, at times growing to probably around 100. Right now, the atmosphere here is tense, but it is peaceful. We're hearing from members of the community that they are angry. They're here because they want their voices heard. There is a deep-rooted sense that this community has been oppressed. The Africans and Americans in this community tell us that there's been
Anna, stand by for me because I just have to take us to a live press conference right now. Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark is speaking. Let's listen.
Sherman Boulevard. It's 43rd Street. And a little bit of a briefing moving forward into tonight. I'm going to start with a timeline. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll start by saying this because there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, in terms of what causes these situations. The police use of force serves as an igniter. There's no doubt, but to an already volatile situation, a volatile mix of urban pathologies, failed urban policy that exacerbates inescapable poverty, failing public schools, inadequate parenting, father-absent homes. We all know when fathers are not around to shape the behavior of young boys, they oftentimes grow up to be unmanageable misfits that the police have to deal with in an aggressive fashion. Pathologies like lifestyle choices, questionable lifestyle choices, gang involvement, drug and alcohol abuse, as well as massive unemployment. Those are the ingredients. Those are the things that cause resentment, anger, and frustration to boil beneath the surface, and then all of a sudden the police situation comes along, and that's why I said it's an igniter, but it's an igniter to an already festering situation. So, you know, this whole last couple of years coming out of Ferguson, there's been a lot of focus on police and police use of force, and that's fine by me. All right, we get our consent from our authority from the consent of the government. If something's bothering them, we should have discussions about it. But this thing has been hijacked for a political end, it's a political construct now. I mentioned that 2 years ago. If you want to go back and look at some of the tapes, I said this was a political construct, this whole war on police. And that, in fact, was a war on police that mirrored what had gone on in the 1960s. Same thing, same model, same subversive groups involved with different names now, different generation, of course, as all those folks from the Students for a Democratic Society got old and they're probably senior citizens now and a little tired for this, or tired of it. So I was acutely aware of what was going on and exposed it as such. So we get into what happened last night. You all received a briefing from the Milwaukee Police Department this afternoon. Squads made a traffic stop. Occupants got out of the car and confronted the police. At least one was armed. They may both have been armed, but I'm aware that one was armed. And an officer used force, fearing that his life was in danger, and it's an ongoing investigation, and that'll sort itself out as time moves forward. And then late last night, some of the residual effect of the thing that I opened up talking about, the anger, the resentment, the frustration in people boiled over. And we had an untenable situation in Milwaukee. I've made it clear as it related to the riots of Ferguson and Baltimore that people have to find a more socially acceptable way to deal with their frustration, their anger, and their resentment. All right, this is an orderly society. We have processes, we have institutions with which to deal with these things. And as frustrating as it can be, sometimes it takes a long time to work through the institutions and the processes that we have. It's still what we have to do, because we cannot have the social upheaval, the chaos that we saw last night that frightens good law-abiding people in those neighborhoods. It destroyed businesses where people work, some probably as a means to support their family, and they're going to have to deal with that. But I made it clear this afternoon in some discussions that I have, the goal moving forward is that we cannot have a repeat. I didn't say we wouldn't. I said we cannot have a repeat of what happened last night. Some additional forces have been mobilized and put together. A plan is in place. That plan is fluid. It involves a lot of my resources. I made a call up of all of our personnel this morning to be on standby. They're actually mobilized. You cannot wait too long, as they found out in Ferguson when the mayor put out the call to the governor, and those additional resources never showed up, or showed up late. In Baltimore, the call was never made. I have an obligation, folks, under the state statutes. I also have an obligation under the oath that I took to preserve and protect life and property. All right, that's job one. And to the extent that I have that responsibility, I have to have resources, and I have to make sure that the people that I put in harm's way, like I did last night, like I'll do when these situations arise, that they have the resources necessary to complete the mission. All right, what's the mission? Job one, preservation of life and property. It's a pretty clear mission. So you apply your resources to do that, and you go back, you reassess, hopefully a minimal amount of damage, minimal life or injury, I should say, to life. And, hopefully, so far it's been the case after last night, other than the officer use of force, nobody else killed. But I think it's important to point out as well, because we tend to gloss over this stuff. We keep focusing on the police. And I've said publicly before, stop trying to fix the police, fix the ghetto. And I talked about those urban pathologies that have to be addressed to shrink the size of the underclass. We have the growth of an underclass here in Milwaukee. You saw some of their behaviors on display last night. So you shrink the size of the underclass. How do you do that? You reduce poverty. You fix the schools. You put people back to work, meaningful work. You hold people accountable for effective parenting and some of those lifestyle choices, which sometimes means if they're going to go out and engage in certain behaviors that society says we're not going to put up with, then there have to be sanctions, and that's where the criminal justice system comes in. That's where the prosecutor's office comes in. And I look around, just about everybody in this room has heard me over the last 5 years, minimum, talking about the role of the criminal justice system, the prosecutor's office, the sentencing practices in this area in Milwaukee County. And I don't know, I guess people didn't think it played a big role, but we're seeing it now. Not just last night, but we're seeing it time and time again. When some individual goes out and does something heinous, we look and they have a long, lengthy criminal history that nobody applied any sanctions to, or any meaningful sanctions, let's put it that way. Maybe some sanctions, slap on the wrist is a sanction, but that's not meaningful. So as I look at the two individuals involved in the traffic stop last night, I have their criminal histories in front of me. We will provide their booking photos later on. Fran will put that out. But as I look, the individual who lost his life, "13 arrests, some serious stuff, recklessly endangering safety, the felony, first degree, felony, dismissed." I don't know why, I don't have the reason, but somebody, it isn't going to be me. I guess if you all have an interest, you'll go back and start peeling back the layers to find out what happened. Sometimes this is no fault of the prosecutor. If you can't get, or she can't get the witnesses to cooperate, I understand that. But That tells the individual who was involved in it that not much is going to happen, and they tend to repeat the behavior. That's how human behavior works. You punish unwanted behavior, you'll see less of it. You do nothing about unwanted behavior, you're going to see a repeat and more of it. It's got a bunch of drug arrests here. Robbery, use of force, no prosecution. I don't know why. I'm not going to blast the prosecutor's office at this point. However, somebody ought to go back and look and see why. There has to be a reason. That's called accountability. If the DA says, hey, we tried, the victims bailed on us, I get that. But if this is one of these second chance, deferred, those are the sorts of things I think that are having a detrimental effect to this community. The second guy, the guy who lived, who's in custody now, possession of a dangerous weapon under 18, dismissed. Some drug dealing, 2-year probation, interlock system, time served, 12 days. It's pretty light sanctions. 2 counts of bail jumping, 2 years probation, time served, 45 days. Another possession of cocaine, probation violation. He's on probation. That means he's been given his chance. In one of these earlier arrests, he's been given his chance. Son, we're going to put you on probation. We're going to give you a chance. You got to walk the straight and narrow. He does not walk the straight and narrow. Gets arrested several times for probation violation. He gets time served, 30 days, time served, 45 days. It's why we continue to see the behavior repeated. I'm going to go through the timeline here quickly from Saturday to Sunday, August 13th to 14th, starting at 7:16 p.m. last night. MPD inspector on the scene, area 44 an hour, requested MCSO supervisor, MCSO's Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. 8:35, shot spotter alert, 41st and right, shots fired. 8:47, MPD called, shots fired east of Sherman. 9 o'clock, MCS squads begin responding to Sherman Park area to meet at the playground to mobilize and marshal our forces. 9:03, MCSO squads advised to stage at Washington Park and await orders. So we had 2 locations that we marshaled these resources, and that's in case something happens at one, they're not all tied up and you can't get them out of there. 9:12, MPD reports about 200 subjects in the area, 42nd an hour, possibly to march. 9:15, MPD reports subjects beginning to face police trying to incite the crowd. 9:18, MPD reports subjects breaking up chunks of concrete, begin to throw toward police officers. 9:21, per squad 700, that would be our commander on the scene at the time, squad 700. He makes the decision that all patrol and airport deputies be extended, meaning even though the shift's over, 10 o'clock, they got to stay. 9:22, a command post is established at Midtown Shopping Center. 9:30, MPD requests the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office Bearcat to meet at District 7 for deployment. 9:41, reports of multiple shots fired in the area of Sherman and Burleigh. 9:44, approximately 100 to 150 subjects looting at the BP station Sherman and Burleigh. 9:53, BP station fully engulfed in flames. However, MPD cannot respond due to the area still being a hot zone, meaning there's gunshots, or at least the sound of gunshots in the area. They don't have that kind of protective gear, by the way, firefighters. 10:04, MPD requesting additional officers, large crowds throwing rocks at 44th and Burleigh. 10:06, due to large crowds, rocks being thrown and shots fired, MPD and MPS squads begin falling back to rally at a safe location, redeploy. 10:12, MCSO squad 216 hit by a brick, passenger side front window smashed. 10:14, Waukesha County Bearcat requested. 10:26, staging area established at the corner of Roosevelt and Fond du Lac. 10:36, squad 700, our commander on the scene, orders all available MCSO squads to assist MPD with forming arrest teams behind a skirmish line Mobile jail is also in the area. That would be our mobile jail. 10:39, reports of light poles being knocked down, Sherman and Burleigh. 10:45, MPD, MCSO arrived. Sherman and Burleigh began ordering subjects to disperse. 100 people reported in the area. BP gas station almost completely burned down. 10:46 to 11:16, several reports of throwing rocks and random shots fired in several areas around Sherman and Burleigh. 11:02, MPD requests Racine and Walworth County Bearcats. 11:15, State Patrol takes over patrol of the Milwaukee County freeway system. That's because we called all of those squads in to assist in the hot zone. And I want to thank the state, the commander of the superintendent of the State Patrol for doing that for us. 11:16, MPD MCSO skirmish line begins moving toward the area of Sherman and Burleigh. Approximately 11:30, officers at CP Midtown begin hearing random shots fired in the area. Midtown security reports subjects made verbal threats to come to the area of the CP and shoot it up. Again, there's another example of why we deploy in several areas. 11:37, MPD requests MCSO SWAT call-up. That would be ours. 11:46, MPD MCSO skirmish line begins clearing the area of Sherman and Burleigh. 12:02, so now we're into Sunday morning after midnight. The intersection of Sherman and Burleigh is secured. However, several areas still reporting large groups throwing rocks. 12:02, MFD reported several garage, dumpster, and structure fires in the area. Cannot respond without a PD escort, police department escort. 12:09, reports of shots fired, 53rd and Fond du Lac near the CP, which is the command post. 12:35, fire reported at the playground at Sherman Park. 12:51, MPD reports they will begin going mobile to address sporadic crowds in the area of Fond du Lac and 35th. MCSO squads report back to Roosevelt and Fond du Lac to go mobile. 12:55, MPD requests MCSO SWAT team take position on rooftops around the command post. 101, Milwaukee Fire Department begins requesting Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office to have escorts from responding to the hot zone per 700. That's our commander at the scene. One deputy was staged in a fire rig, one deputy following the rig in a squad, so that the fire department could get to these scenes with some sort of cover. 119, per social media, subjects listening to MPD, MCSO radio chatter on F2 and reporting it. 700 orders all radio communication off of F2. F2 would be the frequency that they were we were doing our communicating on. 143, MPD requests medical for police canine dog bite. 3 subjects caught burglarizing a liquor store, 36th and Burleigh. 1 suspect received a dog bite. 145, Squad 700, the commander orders deputies to remain in Sherman Park to keep it secured. 145, 700 orders additional deputies to return to the command post to stand by and assist Milwaukee Fire if needed. 145, we're talking AM now. Per 700, the commander, all deputies at Sherman Park are to return to Roosevelt and Fond du Lac for further deployment. 2 a.m. to 3:30, MFD Fire Department requests escorts to several medical and fire calls in the area around Sherman Park. 3:30 a.m., MPD reporting most crowds are fully dispersed. Squad 700, our commander orders all second shift airport deputies can return to the airport and stand down. 700 orders the third shift patrol to head to their normal assignments. 700 thanks State Patrol for their assistance. At 4 a.m., Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office SWAT rescue teams return to the command post. At 4:30 a.m., 700 advises MFD Fire Department that due to Milwaukee Police having new and available resources, he'll be removing deputies from the fire rigs escorts as soon as they return. At 4:45 a.m., SWAT teams on rooftops are cleared. 5 a.m., MPD requests use of a Bearcat and resources at Sherman Park for the afternoon, evening of 8/14 of 2016.
All right, there you have it. Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark addressing the violence in his city last night. following the police shooting of a 23-year-old African-American man who authorities say was armed with a gun and refused to drop it. I want to bring in again Ana Cabrera, our correspondent on the ground. A long press conference there, Ana, that is still going on. David Clark, the sheriff, outlining what he calls failed urban policy that exacerbates poverty, addressing the anger in the community, but also saying the response that we saw with lighting police vehicles on fire, lighting businesses on fire is not acceptable. Take us all back through the events that have led us to where we are today with this shooting.
Well, let's start where we are. This is the BP gas station, one of 6 buildings that were set ablaze last night when that unrest got out of control, along with several vehicles. You can see a heavy police presence here right now trying to avoid anything like that tonight. Now, it all started yesterday afternoon, just a couple of blocks from here, where police say they tried to pull over a couple of people. It led to a foot pursuit, and at one point during that foot pursuit, according to the police chief, who says it shows on the officer's body camera, one of the people they were pursuing pulled a gun. He had it in his hand, he says, and refused to drop it. Now, an officer who we've learned is 24 years old, also African American, opened fire. He apparently shot several bullets, hitting this suspect twice, at least, in the arm and the chest. And this 23-year-old man, now identified as Sylville Smith, died at the scene. It was hours later where protesters gathered, angry, uncertain if that shooting was justified. We're still waiting to learn much more about this investigation into the shooting itself. A key piece of evidence will very well be that body camera. Apparently, that is with investigators who are part of an independent team of investigators, the Wisconsin Department of Justice here, who has now taken over this investigation. But you can see the crime scene tape, and you can feel a sense of tension in the air, Poppy, and community members telling us it wasn't just about that one shooting. That might have been the tipping point, but really it's years, a deep-rooted sense of being oppressed in this community, and frankly, folks here are fed up, Poppy.
It's really important context, Anna. I'm glad that you point that out. But again, the sheriff saying the reaction unacceptable. And you heard the mayor, Tom Barrett, calling on the community to stay calm and stay inside tonight and not repeat what we saw take place there last night. Ana Cabrera live for us in Milwaukee. Stay with us. We'll have much more from Ana straight ahead. Also, the politics, a lot of political news right now. Up next.